Hi, everybody. Welcome once again to You're Missing Out, a National Film Registry podcast. And what are we here to discuss? As per usual, the National Film Registry, but in a different way than normal. Most times here on the show, we talk about one film specifically that was inducted into the registry several years ago. But today is our special annual episode where we give our real-time reactions to the films selected for the National Film Registry. Joining us once again, I'm Mike Natale, and of course, my co-host, Tom Lorenzo.
Hello, guys. We're back again.
And joining us on mic for the full time, the sort of MC of this in some ways, the only person on mic right now who knows what got inducted this year, our producer, Kyle Lampar.
I don't remember getting you guys keys to get out of your bunker yet. How are you guys doing?
Tom's been out of the bunker. Tom's been out and about. In fact, fun fact, everyone, there's a chance he forgot we were doing this because I texted him earlier and said, "Are you ready for our annual tradition?" And he thought I was referring to the Mel Gibson movie Fat Man, the Santa Claus movie.
Because I was going to see Violent Night,
yeah.
And he goes, and then next the yearly tradition. So I go, yeah, that and Fat Man, the two recent badass Santa Claus movies.
No, I think the thing is, Tom, if you're missing out, the podcast is a child, and Tom, you like to say a lot like, oh well, Mike, you came up with the idea of the show. If I'm the mother of this show, in some senses, Tom, you are the absentee father, where every once in a while I will just text you and be like, you know we're doing this, right? And you're like, ah, crap, he's got a birthday party, I got a softball game going on. I don't know, put some money in a card.
You're not wrong.
But today is a very special episode because, especially now that we're both on mic and we know we're doing this, what we don't know is what movies got into the National Film Registry. That is because, for those of you listening to this for the first time, we are going to give you our real live reactions. Kyle knows the 25 films that were selected this year for the National Film Registry. It has been a little over 12 hours since they went live. It probably went live a little earlier today. I don't know, but
yeah, I think around like 2 a.m., but I woke up at around 7 this morning and they were there, so they were...
It has presumably been discussed on social media. We tried so hard not to spoil it for ourselves, I deleted Twitter off my phone. We have a vested interest in this, not just because we do a podcast about the National Film Registry, but at the end of every episode, we select films that we think should be in the National Film Registry. So, related to whatever film we discussed, Tom and I each pick a movie that we think belongs in the registry that's not already there. Then, at the end of each of our seasons, we take that list of 50 films with some extras, and we submit it to the Library of Congress in the same way that anyone can. Part of the beauty of the National Film Registry is that anyone can submit suggestions to the National Film Registry that will be discussed by their panel. Kyle, I think you said you have a stat about that this year.
Year over year, there was a 11% increase in film nominations for the registry. So, like to think what we at least had a little bit of a part to play in that.
So we were part of that 11% increase of submissions. Tom and I each submitted 25 new films, and then in addition to that, Kyle supplemented that by submitting some of his own picks that we discussed on the show, and all of the films that we had submitted during season 1 that had not previously been selected for the registry, because, in a very cool thing, last year, one of the films that we selected for the National Film Registry, or suggested to the National Film Registry, I should say, they took that suggestion, and Watermelon Woman made it into the National Film Registry. So, without any further ado, unless there is further ado, does anybody have any ado to further?
No, I'm pretty well a dude.
So, well, I'll read my 25 that I submitted at the end of season 2. Tom will do his, and then Kyle will wrap us up with his submissions and all of our season 1. So, here are the 25 films that I submitted at the end of this past season, season 2. I suggested to the National Film Registry The Kid Stays in the Picture, Annabelle's Serpentine Dance, Scarface, Inside Deep Throat, Fiddler on the Roof, Gimme Shelter, The Dover Boys at Pimento University, The Social Network, Dead Presidents, Juice, Jackass Number 2, Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, American Dream, Rejected, Lady and the Tramp, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, The Children's Hour, Harvest of Shame, Possibly in Michigan, The Elephant Man, Flesh, Claudine, Up in Smoke, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier.
And my picks are Training Day, Bad Boys, Heat, Bram Stoker's Dracula, George Washington, The War Room, Here Come the Coeds, Sorcerer, Letters from Iwo Jima, The Outsiders, Smokey and the Bandit, The Bridges of Madison County, Blue Collar, 300, Breezy, Top Secret, Magnificent Obsession, Miss 45, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, Cross of Iron, Boomerang, Mikey and Nicky, The Naked Gun, High Plains Drifter, and Open Range.
And my picks were Spider-Man, 2002, Me at the Zoo, the first YouTube video, American Psycho, and Superbad. And of course, if you are a longtime listener, one of our guests, Dr. Robert Snyder, had a pick of his own ready when he came on our show. He selected Head, which we had submitted on his behalf.
And then in addition to that, Kyle, you also submitted our Season 1 submission. So let's give everybody a refresh of what we picked back in Season 1 that was also resubmitted this year. So these also were in the conversation about what they might select.
We've got Boogie Nights, Hannah and Her Sister, Technological Threat, the 1938 serial The Lone Ranger, Moulin Rouge, Iron Man, Bamboozled, Dixon Buffalo Bill Films, Terms of Endearment, The Little Mermaid, Blue Velvet, Street Fight, Tongues Untied, Batman, A Clockwork Orange, Just Another Girl on the IRT, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Crazy Cat Bugologist, Thief, The 1910 Wizard of Oz, The Watermelon Woman, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Helga, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, the Trump Talk Citizen Kane. How'd you describe that one?
Errol
Again,
Morris clip, I guess.
Great. And then for Tom's pick, we've got Barton Fink, Rolling Thunder, Madawan, Man on Fire, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Blade, Casino, Fort Apache, They Live, South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, Brick, Nixon, F for Fake, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, Failsafe, Crooklyn, The Blues Brothers, Magnolia, Fat City, Brazil, Blood Simple, The Age of Innocence, The Hired Hand, The Train, There Will Be Blood, and that's it.
So that is everything that was submitted on our behalf to the registry. As we noted, Watermelon Woman did get in after we submitted it. We technically didn't submit Clockwork Orange and Blues Brothers because those got in halfway through our season because of the way we had things scheduled. But the real question, and the real reason why folks are listening, if anyone's still listening at this point, quite frankly, the real reason folks are still listening is to see what got in this year and what we think of it. We got Watermelon Woman in last year. Will we get any in this year? Tom, Kyle knows, but what do you think? Do you think we got any in? Do you have a guess at how many? How do you think we did between all 50 of these or 100 of these films?
I'm gonna take I'll say we probably got something in, at least one. I'll go be a little generous and say I think we got 3 in this time.
Okay.
I don't know, but I'm gonna say 3.
Can I tell you what I hope it is? I hope it's only one, and I hope it's Here Come the Coeds. Just because I want it to be just the one that had the least amount of thought put into it.
It would be quite fitting.
All right. Oh, wait, we should explain to folks one thing. The way this is going to work, Kyle is going to give us just the year and the title. If Tom or I, or both of us, know what it is, we'll talk about it right off the bat. If we don't, then Kyle will read us the registry statement for what the film is.
From 1898, the Mardi Gras Carnival.
I mean, 1898's not a narrative, so I would not know what that is beyond presumably just a film of a carnival. So what's that all about?
It's my favorite movie. How dare you? Yeah, I don't know. It's probably like a 5-minute clip at fucking Mardi Gras. It's like, just like, oh yeah, we have footage of Mardi Gras. What is this, Kyle?
In 2013, The Library of Congress issued a detailed report showing that over 70% of silent era American feature films have been completely lost. Many of these titles perished in nitrate fires, while copyright owners often melted the films down for their silver content once their theatrical runs ended, feeling the films no longer had any commercial value. Luckily, hundreds of lost American silent films have been rediscovered in foreign archives, carefully preserved by archivists in those nations. American cinema has always had a worldwide audience, and the copies sent for overseas distribution often found permanent households in archives in the UK, France, the Czech Republic, the Netherlands, Italy, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Russia, and Scandinavian countries. The iFilm Museum in the Netherlands has been one of the leading rescuers, recently recovering films such as Shoes by Lois Weber, Beyond the Rocks, Swanson and Valentino, His Birthright, Hayakawa, The Floor Below, Mabel Normand, Lucky Star by Borzage? Help me out with that one, maybe? Yoard Borzage, silent version of Capra's Submarine, and numerous Vitagraph films from the tens. The selection, Mardi Gras Carnival, is another one of those finds and is the earliest film known to exist of the Carnival Parade in New Orleans, showing several dazzling floats, paraders, and spectators, almost all wearing hats. The film is part of iFilm Museum's Mutascope and Biograph collection. This collection consists of about 200 films preserved on their original 68mm format. The digital file provided is scanned in 2022 at iCollection Center from the 35mm duplicate negative that was made in 1998. After the first analog preservation round made 25 years ago, I is now undertaking the digital restoration of the Mutascope and Biograph collection. Mardi Gras Carnival became the focus of attention thanks to its inclusion with the Artistry of Rex exhibition that opened in the summer of 2022 at the Louisiana State Museum.
Okay, so what we're looking at there is a case of, because I wouldn't have known what this was, but once Kyle started giving us all the description, I'm pretty sure I remember hearing about this truly because my partner and I have thought about taking a trip down to New Orleans, and I came across this thing about it is essentially the earliest, unless I'm mistaken, Kyle, you're the paragraph, it's the earliest footage of a Mardi Gras celebration, and it was one of these things that I think was long thought to be lost. And some historian came across it. And that's kind of what we're seeing, especially when we deal with these earlier picks. Like last year, the first film they inducted, or the oldest film they inducted, was that Ringling Brothers Circus Parade. That was just like one of these candid films that captured, because it was filming a circus parade, it captured Black life in that period in a way that wouldn't have been depicted in a traditional narrative film. And I think, obviously, I haven't seen this particular Mardi Gras celebration film, but it does feel like part of that, like that paragraph was addressing trying to preserve all of these old mutascopes and all of that. I do think there's something to the idea of, now going back to these films that, after the, by the time we introduced the Great Train Robbery, which we talked about last season in like 1910 or so, the public loses interest in watching these slice of life films. So there's really no interest in preserving them. But now we get to go back and look at those, and historians are interested in looking at those because they capture a way that people live in a way that I think people of the time took for granted. Like, who wants to see that? So I do think there's something to that. So that's an interesting pick.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm all for the archiving and saving of all these old films, and especially these kind of things where it's like Mike said, slice of life. It gives us a little bit of a peek into the past in a way that we really can't. As much as good as some production design can be on movies set in the past, there's nothing really like seeing the unfiltered view of what things look like in the fucking 1800s. So I'm all for this.
That's super interesting too, because 1898, that's got to be it's not the single oldest film in the registry, which I think is still Newark Athlete, but that's got to be one of the oldest in the registry, I'd assume, right?
It's probably the oldest in a while, at the very least,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How
like I
many
said,
of these 1800s can possibly in there?
Yeah, like anything I know of that's like 1800s in the registry, I think is like the Edison films, like Newark Athlete and like I don't think Monkey Shines is in, but one of those.
We'll get George Romero in there at some point.
I was gonna say not the Romero. Well, he is in there for Night of the Living Dead, but
Yeah,
Anyway,
but we'll get him in there for his real best movie.
so I assume, that's the oldest one. Kyle, what is next up for us?
We jump ahead to 1948 through 1951. It's a
What?
collection of
Hang on. I'm sorry. I want to just interrupt for a second. Really? It's that big a jump right off the bat?
50 years.
Yeah.
We've spent all morning joking about how Tom is usually like bored for the first half of this when we're just talking about like old footage of trains, and they just breeze. And you said 1945
Yeah.
to
1948 through 1951. Yeah, it's a collection of home movies
Okay.
from Cab Calloway.
Wait, hang on.
Home
Like,
movies from Cab
Calloway?
Yeah.
Minnie the Moocher, Cab Calloway.
That the roller coaster I just went on in terms of like Kyle goes 1948 to 1950 whatever, and I'm like, ooh, maybe it's like some weird film serial, and he goes home movies. Okay, what am I gonna watch home movies from Cab Calloway? What?
Are there any? Is this the first home movie series that has ever entered the national?
No, there are a ton, Tom. There are actually a bunch of them.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. Because I know Disneyland Dream. That's definitely in there. And then there's like a couple of like different families' home movies that get in because they show communities in America that are never depicted on film. But Cab Calloway's home, Kyle.
I gotta hear this paragraph.
Yeah. What is the paragraph for Cab Calloway's? I mean, we know who Cab Calloway is, but there's no way either of us can even conceive of what his home movies are.
So it's shot in 16 millimeters. It's black and white and color, so mixture of both. Includes handsome footage of the legendary singer, band leader, actor, and his family and friends. Filmed with his wife, Nuffy, they document their home life in Long Beach, New York, and their travels throughout North, South, and Central America and the Caribbean. Collection of the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture, gift of Cabela Calloway Langsam. Photochemical preservation was performed by Color Lab, which made new internegative prints of the silent films from the original 16 millimeter color and black and white prints in 2016.
Okay, so did they just like literally throw like a dart at a pile of names, and they were just like Cab Calloway's home movies? What the fuck is this?
So here's the thing, though. I'm
not against it.
No,
I'm not against it. I'm just saying it's the most random fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. It's amazing. I love it.
Can I tell you why I bet they're fascinating, though, Tom? Because it mentions his travels, right?
Yeah.
Think about 1948, 1951. Think about the very, very small window of black artists from that era who were able to perform in both traditionally black spaces and traditionally white spaces, right? I mean, when you think about what he must have been able to capture, not to mention, I mean, Cab Calloway is obviously a hugely important pop culture figure, and seeing those would be fascinating anyway, in the same way that, like, we talked about Harold Lloyd last season, has copious home movies that people like, you got to see him. But
also, this is two years in a row Cab Calloway gets into the National Film Registry.
Well, Blues Brothers was 2 years ago. There's a gap Calloway year.
Okay,
there's a Cab Calloway gap year, but yes.
But that's, and also, like in the paragraph says, and what I like, which is what the Mardi Gras thing was like, we get to see Central and South America in the 40s and 50s at a time where that wasn't an easy thing for people to do. And a way to see that just glimpse into the past is taking away the Cab Calloway element, which I would never do. This is now my new favorite thing.
Tom's waiting for the 4K Blu-ray.
I'm waiting for Severin to put that out. Yeah, like that's really cool. Like that's actually pretty cool. As random as hell as this is, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
And the other beautiful thing about preserving this stuff too, I'll just say, like in a future season, years from now, we're going to cover Disneyland Dream, which was just Kodak. In the first year Disneyland opened, Kodak held a contest to give one family an, I think, 8mm camera, as long as they an 8mm film camera, as long as they filmed their trip, and then Kodak could play it. And now the registry selected it because because of this family's footage, you get to see Southern California in the 50s, you get to see suburban life in the 50s, and you get to see Disneyland in the 50s. But I believe after it was preserved, somebody turned around and went, "That's Steve Martin." Steve Martin was working at Disneyland at the time as a magician and juggler, and somebody noticed in Disneyland Dream, they're like, "That's young Steve Martin working at Disneyland." So there is something about, like, honestly, preserving these home movies and things like that. Like, what are future generations going to see in that, you know? Even in the same way, like, last season, we talked about Long Goodbye got inducted, and Tom pointed out, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger's in that movie. That didn't mean anything to the people at the time, but that is a fascinating extra element to be in there. So,
Yep.
yeah, Kyle, I'm sorry. I think we went way longer on Cab Calloway's home movies than you expected we would, but
Yeah, probably more than any other film on this list. I
but
would
it's just the
Next
delight
entry.
we had. Yeah, what's next?
1950, because again, it's like
Jesus
1948, so this is
Christ.
the other 1950 one. Yeah. Cyrano de Bergerac.
Oh, is that the Jose Ferrer one?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So then that makes us.
Okay.
Have you
I
seen
haven't
that
seen
one,
it,
Tom?
but
Okay.
no, but I know the Cyrano de Bergerac story, so
Yeah.
it's like I haven't seen it, but I know what it is. So
Well,
that's
but
yeah, okay.
it's not. But here's the key thing about it: it's not just that it's a good adaptation. It's maybe my favorite, or the Gerard Depardieu one, but it's the fact that Jose Ferrer wins Best Actor for it and becomes the first Latino actor to win Best Actor, and I would imagine probably the first non-white actor to win Best Actor, right? I think.
Well, yeah, because I mean,
Because
Sidney
it's
Poitier is not going to
Claudia,
win
yeah.
for like 20.
I mean, as long as you competitive. I mean, obviously, like James Baskett gets a special Oscar for Song of the South, but nobody really talks about that for a number of reasons. But yeah, Jose Ferrer wins Best Actor for Cyrano de Bergerac. So, setting aside the fact that it is a great adaptation, which, by the way, I think people can watch because I think that movie fell into the public domain. But in addition to being just a great film adaptation, yeah, Jose Ferrer winning that Oscar for that is an incredible achievement.
Hey, I'm into it. That's all good to me. I like the Cyrano story. My favorite is probably Roxanne, but what are you going to do? Yeah, next entry.
From 1963, Charade.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, okay, cool. That's cool.
Wow. You know what's weird about that? I just talked about how I think Cyrano de Bergerac's in the public domain. Charade, definitely in the public domain. Maybe one of the most exploited public domain films of all time.
And probably the best Hitchcock movie Hitchcock didn't make until
Yep.
Brian De Palma shows up in the scene.
I mean, obviously, we all, I think, are on the same page that we prefer the truth about Charlie. But, listen, if we're going to do, Charade. No, really, Charade is great. It's Audrey Hepburn, Cary Grant. Phenomenal score. I do think it's one of these movies that its public domain status helps its legacy because I feel like it can get played anywhere at any time and be on any DVD anywhere, and I think that helps people
Yeah.
find it. And it's
It's
a
one
nice
of those movies that can be like on the screen in movies. I'm pretty sure it was a movie. It was the movie being watched in a movie theater in this horror movie on Shudder I watched earlier this year called Watcher with Micah Monroe. So yeah, I definitely think that's probably a big help to it. It's what helped, we mentioned it before, Night of the Living Dead. So
And it's also, it's not just that, it's the fact that it is an incredibly watchable movie. And I think it's watchable in I think its public domain status helps Charade be the kind of movie that's like a TNT movie before there's a TNT. You know what I mean? In
Yeah.
terms of it gets endeared to you because you can see it anywhere. I think it's maybe a bit of a weird movie on a first watch to try and get on its wavelength because Grant and Hepburn are so seemingly mismatched. Because it is kind of doing the Hitchcock thing, but it's kind of playful, and you never know how seriously it's taking the story.
And to kind of jump off of that public domain thing helping it, I think it also helped it stay alive a lot longer than it did because it's playing off of the Hitchcock thing, where a lot of Hitchcock movies weren't available for a long time
Yeah.
because of rights issues with the studios and stuff. Excuse me. So, people couldn't see Vertigo North by Northwest until like the 80s, but you had Charade. It's right here. We're going to show it.
Yeah.
People liked it. It wasn't like people didn't like it. It's in the fucking registry. Again, not Cab Calloway's home movie, so go fuck yourself, Cary Grant. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. Kyle didn't read the paragraph. I'm just realizing. So
Yeah, we are only doing the paragraphs
oh,
if
we
we
don't
don't
have
know
to.
the movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
fuck that. Next movie.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just gonna eat up so much. Because they're getting verbose now with
Okay.
some of these paragraphs. So
Yeah, that one for Mardi Gras
well,
wasn't a fucking paragraph. That was a college essay that someone had to write.
yeah. Okay, so what's after Sure? I can't believe we're already up to the fucking 60s and we're like 5 movies in. What is this gonna be?
from 1963, Scorpio Rising.
Oh, okay. That's one that I feel like is shocking it wasn't already in. There are other Kenneth Anger films in the registry already. I think Ode to Artifice is in there. But I think Scorpio Rising is his most famous and most well-known film. So I'm shocked it took this long, other than the fact that it still feels so controversial. It's kind of like how Pink Flamingos got in last year, and Tom, when it got in last year, went, I'm shocked it's not in there. Scorpio Rising, for those who don't know, it's about 26 minutes long, I think. It has an incredible soundtrack made entirely of unlicensed music. Kenneth Anger satirizing both masculinity and fascism. It's a film, an experimental, non-narrative film about a Nazi biker gang that gathers together in their garage, pump and iron, looking at their Marlon Brando pictures and listening to all their doo-wop music and, being just so masculine and so manly that they're flexing. And then they start pulling their dicks out and they start pissing on each other and having an orgy on the Nazi flag. And you're like, oh, right. Okay. Really transgressive for its day. Really shocking to see then. Still kind of shocking to see now, especially with that, that great doo-wop soundtrack to it. If I remember correctly, I think it gets protested by the Nazis, not because of the gay content, but because they were desecrating their flag. And the cops showed up and broke up, I think, the premiere or an early screening. Something like that.
Well, they were already there, so.
But yeah, Kenneth Anger is one of the most important experimental filmmakers of the 60s, and Scorpio Rising is maybe the most important film he ever made. So it is truly shocking that it took this long to get in, but for the fact that it is definitely the kind of thing that you could see like the Pat Buchanans of the world getting mad that their tax dollars are paying to preserve. That makes me so happy that it's in. I also love that last year we got Pink Flamingos in. This year we're getting Scorpio Rising in. Maybe we can alternate. Can I get another Waters next year? Am I allowed my one transgressive film? Do we get Hairspray or Serial Mom in next year? I'd be very happy. Anyway, Tom, any thoughts on Scorpio Rising?
Never saw it, never heard of it, but all that sounds A-okay to me.
Kyle, what's next?
From 1967, Behind Every Good Man.
I don't know what that is.
No, I have no. I'm assuming it's a documentary from the title, but
Yep, this flirtatious, heartbreaking pre-Stonewall UCLA student short by Nikolai Ursin offers a stunning early portrait of Black gender fluidity in Los Angeles and the quest for love and acceptance. Following playful street scene vignettes accompanied by a wistful baritone voiceover narration, the film lingers tenderly on our protagonist preparing for a date who never arrives. The film is preserved by the UCLA Film and Television Archive.
that sounds. So it's a. Is it a feature or is it a? Do you know offhand, or I guess?
Sounds like a student short.
Okay, and what?
That's about all I know.
Okay, and it's about a Black trans woman. You said, right?
Yes. Let me see. I just sent over an article that might help too.
I mean, that definitely sounds interesting. And already we're like 6 movies in, and
Yeah.
it already is like clear that yet again there's a real push for inclusivity in this
Yeah.
list and trying to reorient the canon without outright erasing like movies that we know are great, or Charade is maybe like the whitest fucking thing in the world, but it's still like we know it's a good movie. We can still say this is a good movie without doing what the dirtbag left says we should just erase all like white people movies, which is like I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of good whiteys out there that made movies, bad whiteys that made good movies. I don't know. I'm sure we'll talk about them next season. with Philip Iscove. But yeah, I do like, because this is an interesting pick in that it's not like, oh, we're doing inclusivity for inclusivity's sake, so we're putting in like the best man or something. It's like, oh no, this sounds like really interesting, like forward thinking stuff that actually probably inspired a lot of interesting filmmakers.
Huh. On Letterboxd, Nikolai Ursin is credited as Nick Elliott, and his other directing credits appear to all be porn.
Well, there you go.
Second most popular movie on Letterboxd, besides Behind Every Good Man, is a 60-minute film called Morning, Noon, and Night. The synopsis is: mustachioed and handsome Greg Myers and Dave Daniels search for true love among three humpy studs. So, I say that to say, it does feel like, even though we had 4 years of conservative rule recently, it does feel like the National Film Registry, between Scorpio Rising and this, have very consciously gone, all right, the evangelicals are not going to pay attention to what we're doing anymore. We can get the good stuff in. You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't have put this in 1990. Like Rush Limbaugh would have had a conniption. And I like that they're finally just being like, all right, we can do this now. What's next, Kyle?
It's all good.
From 1967, Titicut Follies.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, yeah, we're actually doing a Frederick Wiseman film this coming season, high school. And as I was planning ahead, I was like, what might I pick for high school? Holy shit, Titicut Follies isn't in there. That's insane. That should absolutely be in there by now. So now I need to rethink what my registry pick would be for that. But absolutely, Titicut Follies should be in there by now. Titicut Follies is a very affecting documentary, as you guys can probably tell by the way that Tom and I both reacted with what sounded like shivers. Is that fair to say, Tom? That's a movie you don't forget seeing.
This is a movie that's almost like a dare.
Yeah.
And not in like the edgelord Serbian film way, because this is a documentary and it's like, oh yeah, humanity just fucking sucks. Like, things are just bad and things are disturbing, and like, I don't know, it's just ugh.
You don't forget having seen it. We'll probably talk about Titicut Follies a lot when we talk about high school, because they are kind of intertwined insofar as one of the things that Wiseman does so well as a documentarian, especially in this era, is the way that he can kind of make his subjects feel comfortable enough with him and make them feel like he is going to just capture their day-to-day. Like, he doesn't rely heavily. High school has no voiceover whatsoever. And if you watch it without paying attention, you're just going to see a collection of clips. But then as you focus on it, you start to see exactly what he's selecting and why. With Titicut Follies, I mean, with Titicut Follies, Frederick Wiseman does for mental institutions what Upton Sinclair did for factories with The Jungle. You know what I mean? Like, he really just exposes the inhumanity of it. In a way that I'm legitimately feeling slightly anxious thinking about it. I'm not joking. My skin is starting to crawl a little bit. We will talk about it, which means we'll have to watch it again. But also, oh my god.
Well, luckily you don't have to watch it again for like 40 years, so it's fine.
Oh my god. Titicut Follies, it deserves to be in there. Incredible film. Should have been in there much sooner, but holy shit. Okay. What's next, Kyle? I don't want to talk about this one anymore.
From 1968, Mingus.
Mingus? Mingus?
Yep.
Okay, so this is about Charlie Mingus, the jazz musician.
Yes.
Okay.
So I guess it's a documentary.
Yeah, I would imagine, or a concert film? Is it a documentary or a concert film? I'm gonna guess that counts.
This raw portrait of the legendary composer and bassist Charles Mingus is an invaluable, at times sad and harrowing document of one of our great American composers, the jazz scene in New York in the late 1960s, life in Harlem, and Mingus's eviction from his apartment. In his interviews with director Thomas Reichman, Mingus riffs with bemused but knowing frankness on issues including racism, his place as a jazz musician in a white-dominated American society, politics during the civil rights era, and women. Mingus also features rare and remarkable footage of the artist performing in clubs.
Interesting. I've never seen this. I would like
Neither have
to.
I. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in watching a documentary about 1960s jazz stuff.
Well, especially because 68, shit's bad for Charlie, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also,
So
yeah, Mingus also has a lot of opinions all the time about anything. So I would imagine watching that, he's gonna say some things. Yeah, I think a couple years ago they put a Thelonious Monk documentary in too, so I'm glad they're getting that in. I mean, important cultural figure, so.
next picture.
From 1971, Manzanar.
No
I
fucking
know
clue.
I know nothing about it, but I'm going to assume it has something to do with the Japanese internment camp of the same name.
Looks like it. Robert Nakamura created this documentary as a film student at UCLA Film School's Ethno Communications program. During his childhood, Nakamura had lived in the Central California Japanese American internment camp of Manzanar. He recollects his childhood experiences at Manzanar, feelings, smells, sounds, the FBI taking away his next door neighbor active in judo and kendo, the stark surroundings, his parents maintaining a cheerful front, going to the camp bathroom and not remembering which of the similar looking barracks he lived in. The film serves as a pensive meditation on how his time there as a child has affected his adult life. Japanese music serves as a commentary on the images, and the shaky handheld camera footage attests to the disjointed and stressful nature of his childhood at Manzanar.
I mean, that's definitely not going to be a fun fucking thing to watch, but I'm definitely interested in it because I've always been fascinated about how this country just always conveniently sweeps under the rug the Japanese internment camps.
Yeah, one of the worst things we've ever done.
Just conveniently. Like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, we'll talk about slavery, even though a lot of people bitch about, do we have to keep talking about it? It's like, well, at least you're acknowledging that we're talking about it. We talk, but we don't talk about the It's crazy that we just don't talk about the internment camps. And to go off your point of we couldn't get some things in under conservative rule, we couldn't have gotten this under fucking Trump because he was literally the internment camps came back into popular conversation again because of his clear intent to probably get internment camps going for Muslims.
Well, it's strange though you say because like the other thing is like it's something that as you would think that it would be a topic for art and film in a big way, especially now so many years out. But like other than maybe like Bad Day at Black Rock acknowledges the internment camps, and beyond that, like you don't really see a lot about it. Even now, I mean, George Takei tried to stage a musical on. He did stage a musical on Broadway about his life in the internment camps. I believe called Allegiance. That
The
that couldn't really draw box office after a while. Like it needed more support, needed more love, because people just don't want to acknowledge it or look at it. And I think that that's
yeah, I know the second season of that show, The Terror, was set in an internment camp. Uh, it was canceled after that season because I don't think people want to watch stuff like that. People seem to conveniently forget that the Karate Kid, for as 80s rah
yes,
rah as it
yes.
is, has a very heartbreaking scene where Mr. Miyagi gets drunk on sake on the anniversary of his wife and child's death in an internment camp while he was off fighting in the war, which is just like, oh, this is a sharp right turn into darker territory than the go-go Reagan 80s would seemingly allow a movie to go, especially one that was so successful. Don't get that shit. Love it. I mean, I love that they went to that well and gave the movie a greater depth than it needed, but yeah, we just don't talk about it. I think that's just a greater symptom of this country. We don't like to talk about our sins. I mean, I say we talk about slavery, but we really don't. We conveniently ignore everything and try to just sweep it under the rug. That's why Reconstruction didn't work. That's why we're still dealing with the 13th Amendment. That's why, every time a black person gets shot by the cops, you got to hear every conservative go, do we have to hear about slavery again? It was 200 years ago. It's like, all right, but they're still getting killed in the streets with impunity, guys. I don't know what to tell you.
And that's kind of what, especially in recent years, the film registry has been good about. And we talked about it last year when the murder of Fred Hampton got inducted.
Yeah.
Remember, these films are getting preserved by the Library of Congress, by an act of Congress. They are preserved. That cannot be taken away. And as such, we cannot deny it. You know, for as much as this may seem like a silly thing that a bunch of film nerds getting together to talk about, the fact of the matter is, by Carla Hayden putting this in front of Congress and adding this to the film registry by an act of Congress and preserving it, the government is acknowledging this and that we have it on the record in a way that cannot be denied. I have not seen Manzanar. I don't know much about it, of the film itself, but those images will exist in the same manner that the murder of Fred Hampton will exist, and that so much of this Freedom Riders will exist, and it cannot be denied. And I think that, in a time that feels perhaps a bit unnerving with what people want to not just sweep under the rug, but kind of erase from our history books and pretend didn't happen, like, it's so important that we make sure that we're preserving the evidence and the testimonies of things that have happened. So, all for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm all for that shit, man. So, next picture. Give us
Jesus.
something a
Yeah.
little less depressing.
It's been a heavy one so far, Kyle. What's up, bud?
From 1972, Betty tells her story.
I don't know it, Kyle, but from the tone of your voice, I'm willing to bet that this is not the uplifting thing that Tom just asked for.
And also from the title, it sounds
Yeah.
like a documentary about probably a woman describing her horrible fucking life.
Yeah, I don't think this is a documentary about, like, and I went to the store and had a good day.
Well, you'll tell me.
Okay.
Leanne Brandon's classic documentary explores the layers of storytelling and memory, how telling a story again can reveal previously hidden details and context. In this poignant tale of beauty, identity, and address, the filmmaker turns the storytelling power over to the subject. Deceptively simple in its approach, the director, in 2 separate takes, films Betty recalling her search for the perfect dress for an upcoming special occasion. During the first take, Betty describes in delightful detail how she found just the right one, spent more than she could afford, felt absolutely transformed, and never got to wear it. Brandon then asks her to tell the story again, and this time her account becomes more nuanced, personal, and emotional, revealing her underlying feelings. Though the facts remain the same, the story is strikingly different. Betty Tells Her Story was the first independent documentary of the women's movement to explore the ways in which clothing and appearance affect a woman's identity. It is used in film studies, psychology, sociology, women's studies, and many other academic disciplines as a perceptive look at how our culture views women in the context of body image, self-worth, and beauty in American culture.
That sounds so good.
It does. It doesn't sound like a romp, but it does not sound like a glimpse into the abyss. So I'm into that.
I
Something that's not miserable. Is that like a short documentary or like a feature length? Does it say? Because I don't know if that sounds like a 90-minute thing.
Unclear from that. It does look like, according to a quick search, it's about a 20-minute documentary.
I got really swept up in all of that. That sounds
That sounds
fantastic.
really cool. I definitely like that. The whole look into storytelling and psychology and how one telling differs from the next and everything.
Man, I don't know what.
Sounds
Like,
really cool.
Yeah, geez, that I haven't heard of that. I don't know the filmmaker, but I should, and that's probably getting, if it's online, that's probably getting watched when we're done with this. I'm being honest. Okay, wow. What was it? Betty Tells Her Story, you said, Kyle?
Betty Tells Her Story.
cool.
Yep, from 1972.
Okay.
All right.
And this next one's from 1972 as well. Superfly.
This I knew about.
Oh, this one I didn't know about. Okay.
Oh boy. Oh, fucking boy.
Oh, that's fucking awesome. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we actually got a movie that's inclusive. That's not a fucking knife across your fucking spine. Okay.
So
Hell yeah.
I was just thinking about Superfly too, because I just watched. If anybody hasn't seen it, check out on Netflix a documentary that I hope gets an Oscar nomination this year, called "Is That Black Enough for You?" which focuses on a pivotal decade in black cinema, and they talk about the evolution from Shaft to Superfly and so on. Superfly has maybe one of the greatest soundtracks of any movie ever, but also a question that I wonder, Tom, and I don't have the facts to do this, but I thought about it when I saw the title come up before. Is this the first time both a father and a son got films in the National Film Registry? Because, of course, Gordon Parks is in there for both The Learning Tree and Shaft, and Superfly is directed by his son, Gordon Parks Jr. So,
oh fuck, that's right.
is this the first time, I wonder, is this the first time a father and son, or even just
We
two
gotta look into
generations
that.
in general, have films in the registry? We talked about it with Learning Tree. We touched on it, about Shaft and how there's a lot of misconceptions about Shaft. Being, people think of it as more of a traditional blaxploitation film than it is. Sweet Sweetback got in like a year or two ago, and we talked about how that's also not the traditional blaxploitation film. When you in your head imagine like the traditional blaxploitation film, that's Superfly. Like
Yeah,
Superfly
it
is
is.
it
It is Black
creates the
Dynamite.
language. Yeah. Well, I mean the Mac is by the time it gets to Black Dynamite. Like Superfly is legitimately a great movie. It's an enjoyable movie, but it is just you look at it and go like, "Oh, this is what everybody is lifting from." Like there's something in the air with Shaft and Coffee and all of that. But then by the time Superfly happens and hits, that's what everybody is copying from there on out is Superfly
Oh yeah,
because it's just
yeah,
it's so engrossing. The soundtrack is so good. The style is so good. And they just remade it like 2 or 3 years ago, right? Didn't they
yeah.
have like a
With the
new
fucking guy
Superfly?
from, yeah, with the fucking kid from Grownish,
Yeah. That's a
and
weird thing
I
that's been
haven't,
happening lately.
I haven't seen that yet, but Alec was a big fan of it,
Yeah.
so I do want to see it. I will say, this does feel like you said, the movie we think of when we think of blaxploitation. Mainly because it's not a good movie, but it's a good soundtrack, which elevates it to being a good movie. Because it's frankly kind of incompetent and really fucking stupid, but it's very stylish and it has a great soundtrack. So you're just like, yeah, this is cool. I mean, my brain would probably do better from just huffing nitrous, but okay. It's like I'm into it. I like bad movies. It's fine. I'm being honest here. This is a dumb fucking movie. So hell yeah, at National Film Registry, get your freak on. This is the lightheartedness I needed after the fucking internment camp shit. God damn.
Yeah, that was a stretch of like Titicut. The mood in the room changed when Titicut Follies came up.
It's like someone just told us JFK died.
What's next, Kyle?
From 1974, Attica.
A documentary about the Attica.
Is there a different documentary called that? Because there was a documentary called Attica that came out like last year. Is this like a more? Wait, hang on, 74? Jesus,
Attica.
wasn't Attica 72?
September 71, according to the
71,
paragraph.
yeah. This had to be so. This is like insanely contemporaneous. Is it? Wait, is it a documentary or is it like some art film about Attica?
It does look like it here. So Americans have often ignored somewhat out of sight perversions of the American dream: inequality, race relations, conditions at mental hospitals and prisons. These issues only gain the spotlight with coverage of a horrific situation. The September 1971 Attica prison uprising is the deadliest prison riot in U.S. history. To protest living conditions, inmates took over the facility, held hostages, issued a manifesto demanding better treatment, and then engaged in 4 days of fruitless negotiations. On day 5, state troopers and prison authorities retook the prison in a brutal assault, leaving 43 inmates and hostages dead. Cinda Firestone's outstanding investigation of the tragedy takes us through the event, what caused it, and the aftermath. She uses first-hand interviews with prisoners, families, and guards, assembled surveillance and news camera footage, and video from the McKay Commission hearings on the massacre. An ex-inmate ends the film with a quote hoping to shake public lethargy on the need for prison reform. Wake up, because nothing comes to a sleeper but a dream.
Jesus.
Fire.
And
Fire. I want to watch that. That sounds incredible.
I just looked up Cinda Firestone, and she made this film when she was 23. Insane. Sure, I'm in. I'm entirely unfamiliar, but
I mean, haven't seen it. I've heard of the event itself. I've listened to Al Pacino scream that name many a time in my day. So yeah, I'm definitely into a documentary about it. Let's do it. Let's
Yeah.
fucking roll.
The one last year was
60-year-old Tom
fantastic
really
too,
wants to
so
watch
yeah.
this.
60-year-old Tom.
Next picture.
From 1976. Tom,
I know what it is.
what came out in 1976?
It's
Oh,
Carrie.
yeah, there we go. I know this one, yeah.
It's Carrie.
Yeah,
Brian
that rules.
De Palma's
That's
Carrie.
great.
Another one that you feel like, of course, yeah. Of course, it took a while to get in, but yeah. Absolutely.
Well, that honestly, it just feels more like it's threefold why you would. It's all right. You'd think it would be in because it's such a canonical classic in your mind,
Yeah.
but you have three strikes against it. One, De Palma.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
He's a divisive figure, and we tend to think of him as this sleazy schlock guy.
Is this
So
the
he
first
kind of
De
gets
Palma?
knocked.
Maybe.
It might be. Maybe like Hi Mom is in there or something. I
No,
don't
it's
know.
not.
You also got Stephen King, horror writer, tends to be looked down upon from the higher, the higher ups, the elite. And it's a horror movie. And it's like an unabashed horror movie. It's a movie that ends with a fucking bloodbath at a school. So, this is not a movie that's like builds to like that nothing happens and then they tell you what it's about for the last 5 minutes. This is like an according to Hoyle horror movie. So I'm fucking happy for all three of those things. For all three of those things to be recognized in the National Film Registry. Yes. Amen. Hallelujah.
Yeah, I'm fully for it. The only reason I'm surprised, yes, horror gets the short end of the stick, but it did get Oscar nominations. It was a significant film in its day. It was definitely viewed as more than just schlock in its day. And it's also the case of, that central performance is one of the greatest performances in horror cinema in general.
And also the supporting performance.
Yes, the supporting performance. Yes, of course. But yeah, I'm all for keeping. That and Superfly were spoiled for me. There's only one other title that's spoiled for me, so the rest of this is a mystery, thankfully. But yes, very cool that Carrie got in. All for it. Plus more horror in the registry, which doesn't happen often, so good for that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. I'm into that.
From 1976 as well, Union Maids.
Oh my god, is this another fucking documentary about a miserable topic?
Probably.
Okay.
Let's find out. Julia Reichert, Jim
Oh.
Klein, and Miles Mogilescu
I guess so.
directed the seminal labor documentary on the attempt to create industrial unions during the tumultuous 1930s. Crafted in the form of an oral history interspersed with footage from the National Archives, the film interviews 3 Chicago women who served as labor organizers during that period: Kate Hindman, Stella Nowicki, and Sylvia Woods. The best documentaries let the subjects speak for themselves, and Union Maids benefits greatly from the passion of these 3 remarkable women whose moving recollections vividly recreate the era. An exemplary example of history from the bottom up filmmaking. It resonates as both a plea for union rights, but also equality for women taking part in often male dominated unions. The film had a theatrical run in nearly 20 cities and received an Academy Award nomination for Best Documentary Feature.
I feel I'm gonna be just candid with everybody on mic and everybody listening. I feel like I'm about to start crying. It's been an emotional discussion anyway, but the minute that Kyle just said Julia Reichert's name, for anybody who doesn't know, Julia Reichert, an incredible documentary filmmaker, growing up female, one of her films was already in the registry. Just passed away just 2 weeks ago. And it was just a talented filmmaker. Won the Oscar for American Factory recently. Just a really, I've listened to her speak a couple times. Just incredibly gifted filmmaker, and just sorry to not talk about the film in question, but just to know that is getting recognized and presumably was part of the discussion before that happened. It just really knocks you back. But good that her work is being recognized, especially because I don't think those 2 Chappelle Netflix specials she directed are getting in the registry anytime soon. So, I'll take this one. Yeah, the rest in
Wait,
peace, Julia Reichert.
did she really?
Yeah, I'm not joking. You can look it up, Julia Reichert. She
Oh,
did
that's good.
846 and Live in Real Life. But prior to that, American Factory, Last Truck Closing of GM Plant. Growing Up Female was her first film, which is in the registry, and then Union Maids in 76. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, listen, I'm into it. It sounds miserable. So, glad I have 30 years to steel myself up to watch this never-ending parade of misery the registry's throwing at us this year, but hey, I'm into it.
It's only ramping up from here, boys.
Give me a fucking break.
If that's gonna make you cry, get ready.
I'm having a rough one. Okay.
From 1977, word is out. Stories of Some of Our Lives.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh my God. I know that. Yeah, I know this one.
I'm assuming it's a miserable documentary.
No, it's not. It's not. It's just a really incredible work. So this is from, I don't remember his name, but it's the same director that did The Celluloid Closet. This was a film. What was the year you said again, Kyle? 1977, you said?
1977. Are you thinking of Peter Adair?
Yeah. If memory serves, this documentary is just, I don't remember how many people, but it's just candid on-camera interviews with open homosexuals in the 1970s. And that may not seem like much to some people listening, especially younger people listening, but it is impossible to overstate what an act of courage that was at that time. You are looking at. I've never actually seen Word Is Out, and I would have thought that Celluloid Closet would have gotten in first. I think Common Dream, Story of the Quilt is also him. I think he gets his Oscar for that, Peter Adair. But Word Is Out. I mean, it is at a period of a groundswell of passion for gay liberation amongst people within the community, but certainly not a widespread acceptance like we often have today. I think a lot about when we're talking about, I mean, today or yesterday, the president signed a bill codifying gay marriage, and a thing that people my age thought maybe we would see in our lifetimes. And yes, it's under attack, but we got it. For the people in that film, in The Word Is Out, it was a thing that they would never have imagined would happen in their lifetimes. And the extra tragedy that film could not have known is how many of those people, most likely, it did not happen in their lifetimes because of how shortly thereafter that film, the AIDS epidemic, took so many. I have not seen The Word Is Out. I don't know how readily available it is, but I am aware of it, and just, I don't know. We talk a lot on this show. We deride a lot of filmmakers who think they're being transgressive because they make, a clown murder movie or something, but like, that
Hell
is
yeah.
actual courageous filmmaking.
Drag Terrifier to hell and back, Queen.
I need to do something. I am so. This is, goodness gracious. Yeah, that's.
Like, you ever see like a clown? Like, you think he's gonna stab a girl, but then you know what he does? He fucking shoots her. Fucking edgy, bro.
I mean, I have not seen Words Out. I should. I don't know how readily available it is, but I just looked at 26 people that it interviews, and then it played on PBS. I mean, just I mean, absolutely belongs. Absolutely belongs in the registry, and I think an important document.
So that's
of
like
how far we've come.
So that's a movie with a maximum, because I don't know the actual count of who does what, and a maximum of 52 gigantic balls of steel.
Well, men and
to
women
come out and do that shit.
But to be clear,
but that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
A maximum,
Yes.
because I don't know how many men and women are interviewed.
I mean, we don't. That's the thing. Like, I think it is just. I mean, we were just talking about John Waters. We were talking about John Waters and Kenneth Anger, and the other thing is, like, when you talk about John Waters or Kenneth Anger, who I love, they were openly, actively transgressive in every way they could be. They were like, if the system doesn't want me, I don't want them. I don't need them. But the people that we're talking about in this film are just telling you, like, we are just people living our lives, and that's such an act of courage. Yeah. Anyway, what's next, Kyle?
Next
Todd.
picture. Next picture.
From 1979, Bush Mama.
Oh, okay. Wait, Bushma. Is that an American film? I mean, it has to be. It got in. We've
What is
actually
that?
we've talked about Bush Mama on the show
Yeah.
before. That's a Haile Garima film. Right?
Yeah, they're counting this in this
Okay.
case as Garima's UCLA thesis project.
Got it.
thesis
Okay, that
project,
makes
yep.
sense. Yeah. Yeah. So if you guys remember when we talked about Killer of Sheep, we talked about that LA Rebellion group. Which was Charles Burnett and Julie Dash. We talked about Haile Garima primarily about on that episode. We talked about Sankofa because that was a movie that was so hard to find for so long and recently got restored and put on Netflix. Bush Mama is probably his most famous film, but it's also, I think still hard to find. I think, but yeah, Haile Garima, a really interesting filmmaker, but at the same time, seemed so opposed to Hollywood and the system, that I wonder how he feels about being enshrined in the Library of Congress now. Yeah, Bush Mama, part of the LA Rebellion, I believe, deals with, or primarily deals with the idea of a Vietnam veteran returning home, at a time pretty much around the same time the Deer Hunter was doing that, but in a much more, I think, transgressive way. Very cool to see Haile Garima get acknowledged in that way. I think a lot of that LA Rebellion scene is getting that recognition. I mean, Julie Dash has 2 in the registry. Charles Burnett has 2 in the registry. Yeah, very cool. Very, very cool. Bush Mama. Again, you guys can go back to Killer of Sheep. We have a discussion with Danielle Scruggs about this picture, but yeah, hell of a choice. Very cool.
Next picture.
From 1982, The Ballad of Gregorio Cortez.
Okay.
I've heard of this. It's
Yeah.
in the Criterion collection.
Is it? The only reason
I
I know
believe
of it,
so.
It is.
this feels like
I wanted
Okay.
to check this out after reading the freaking little blurb of it. It's incredible.
this is Edward James Olmos is the lead, right?
Yeah.
The only reason it came on my radar recently is like a couple months ago, the Hispanic Caucus. I sent you guys it. The Hispanic Caucus submitted a letter of Latino films they wanted in the registry, and this was on there. And I came across one. Oh, what the hell's this? And looked it up and like, oh, that sounds awesome. I haven't seen it, but I'm very curious to see it. Kyle, did you want to give us the paragraph for this one?
I can, yeah. Acknowledged as one of the key feature films from the burgeoning 1980s Chicano film movement, The Ballad of Gregorio Cortez was based off folklorist Americo Paredes' acclaimed account of El Corrido de Gregorio Cortez, a key work of the Chicano studies movement. The ballad from the borderlands of Texas and Mexico explored the creation through song of the folk hero Gregorio Cortez, a poor Tejano farmer accused in 1901 of killing a sheriff who had shot Cortez's brother during a poorly translated interrogation. A posse of some 600 Texas Rangers pursued Cortez for 11 days before his capture, as widespread newspaper accounts of the chase and subsequent trial spurred the creation of the ballad. Relying on the prodigious talents of director Robert M. Young, lead actor and co-producer Edward James Olmos, cinematographer Ray Villalobos, and producer Moctezuma Esparza, the Ballad of Gregorio Cortez employed narrative devices common to such classic films as Citizen Kane, Rashomon, The Man Who Shot, and Liberty Valance to tell its complicated story in a nonlinear fashion. While some characters speak in Spanish and others in English, the filmmakers decided not to use subtitles to replicate in audiences the experience of borderland characters caught up in the unfolding tragedy. The film has been preserved by the Academy Film Archive.
Sold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't
that
seen it,
sounds
but I will.
dope. I heard about it when the Criterion came out. It sounded great then. Definitely sounds great now. Definitely want to crack that shit open and give it a spin. Yeah, I'm into that. Next picture.
From 1984.
How are we already in 80?
Itam Hakim Hopiit, Victor
Yeah, I don't
Masayevza
know.
Jr., Hopi director and cinematographer of the video, Itam Hakim Hopiit, We Someone the Hopi, or Hopi, once wrote, if film is about imagined time and space, it is born from the imagination of people, each of whom have constructed those times and spaces differently. In Itam Hakim Hopiit, Masayevza imaginatively translates Hopi native oral traditions into video art, complexly constructed of 4 stories conveyed to Hopi children by elder Hopi historian Ross Makaya, who died shortly after the film's release, and accompanied by imagery documenting Hopi life, often in non-confrontational close-ups of details are revealed by a non-intruding and slowly moving camera. Itam Hakim Hopiit moves from the personal to the mythological to the historical, ending up in prophecy. Trained as a still photographer and active as a poet, Masayevza masterly employed color posterization accompanied by Spanish military music and a Vivaldi concerto to introduce a section on Spanish conquest, fast motion to distort a harvest dance, contemplative long shots of landscapes, blurred videography, and silence for emphatic effect. For me, he wrote, photography is a way of imagining life's complexity. It provides an analogy for philosophical comprehension. At the conclusion, Makaya announces the importance of the video for the Hopi people. I have told you a lot. You have learned a lot from me and learned the stories. These stories are going to be put down so the children will remember them. The children will be seeing this and improving on it. This is what will happen. This will not end anywhere.
Well, I mean, I'm certainly interested in seeing it. I hadn't heard of it, but I do think, I mean, we keep doing this thing, especially because this year and the inductees are going like, well, we have to acknowledge the parts of America's history we try to erase, and dealing with Native American culture, heritage, and storytelling is certainly a part that mainstream America tries to erase constantly. So I'm certainly interested in checking that out. I'm unfamiliar with it, but I'm very glad they found it. This is the kind of find that I think the registry is very good at. You know, I feel like sometimes when these lists come out, people focus on the big titles. They focus on like some, not everybody, but you know, people look at like, well, they got Carrie and Superfly in there. What's this thing? And I think it's really good that they're finding these titles and bringing them to people so that folks like us who are curious can discover them. So I'm definitely interested in checking that one out.
Yeah, I'm interested too. Definitely want to see that in 30 years.
I mean, we can watch these sooner on our own. I intend to do so. It's
I know, but it's like I got a lot of other things to watch, man, and I know I want to watch it in 30 years. Like it's fine. Like why do, take away that opportunity from myself? 30 year older Tom, me in my 60s. I'm like, what do I do? Oh, I could watch this. Oh, this just uplifted my day. I just did myself a favor. So you
I
know
just
what?
want to
Fuck
say
you.
I just want to say my favorite part of that is that there was a real cut to moment there where you're like, look, I got things to watch. Cut to Tom watching Halloween Ends for the 50th time. Like cut to
Listen,
immediately
number
just
one, you're not. Listen, number one, you're kind of not wrong because I'm going to immediately watch wrestling.
yeah. Oh boy. All right, Kyle. What's
Next
next on the
picture.
list?
All right.
I don't know why this is my thing now, but
I
there
don't
you go.
know.
Next
I don't
picture.
no, I don't like Kyle saying all right. I am already on the fucking verge right now. I can't do this. What?
All right. Well, spoiler alert. I know what the next movie
Yes,
is.
thank
do you?
you.
Just based on math, I know what the next movie is. Unclench your ass cheeks. You're about to
Okay.
jump in the air.
Am I?
From 1988. Mike?
Really? Did we get two fucking waters in a row?
Hairspray, baby.
Oh, I'm so happy. My God. You know, it's funny. That's probably John's most normal and accessible film. I mean, it gets made into a successful Broadway musical and another film based on it. Oh, good. You know what's funny? Last year, when Pink Flamingos got on and we talked about it, we were both lamenting. I mean, you know, just in one way or another, both talking about like John Waters hadn't made a film since A Dirty Shame. And now he's making another film apparently, and he's getting this recognition. He's got so many films in the Criterion Collection. Hairspray is a hell of a film if folks haven't checked it out. And it is transgressive. You know, I mean, John Waters' films are transgressive, but the thing about Hairspray that makes it so transgressive in the best way, and again, I'm not going to bring up all of these faux transgressive films. The thing that makes Hairspray transgressive in the best way is that while so many of his films exist to shock, and so many of his films are like, well, Divine is going to eat dog excrement, right? Or multiple maniacs with the rosary scene in the church, or you know, what have you. With Hairspray, the only transgressive act is he says, I can make a wholesome and touching film about racism, but our lead actress is going to be a chubby girl, and you're going to have to cheer for her. Which is, it just feels so unique when you see it, because quite frankly, it does not, it does not discriminate against her or make it, the film does not laugh at her in any way. And truly, how often do you see a movie with a full-figured protagonist where the film does not mock that? The fact that John Waters did that in 1988 is incredible. Hairspray, great film. Divine is fantastic in it. It obviously made this successful musical. It's that's fantastic that Hairspray's in. That makes me very happy. Good. Very good. Tom, thoughts on Hairspray?
I'm into it. I'm glad it's
Good.
in there. I forget. I know it was you who said it about that John Waters. My relationship with John Waters is that when people describe him, it's a filmmaker where I go, yeah, be transgressive, piss people off, do crazy shit. That also makes me go, I'm literally never going to watch your movies, except for Hairspray. Like, Hairspray is probably the one where I'd be like, okay, he's not doing his weird, like, poo-poo eating stuff and, like,
you would go all
whatever
in
the
on
fuck the
Serial
rosary
Mom.
scene.
You would love
that one
Serial
also,
Mom.
too, I'd probably like. I mean, I think it's really mainly just, like, the weird, like, yeah, like, the poo-poo eating stuff, and, like, I don't even want to know what the rosary scene is.
You can guess.
I can guess. I
Guess
don't
where it
want to
goes.
know. Yeah, up a butt. I know. I get it.
Close. Multiple Maniacs. Great movie. Yeah. Oh,
but yeah,
God,
I'm
that's
glad it's
nice.
in, and also, just nice to have a nice movie in this list.
Yeah. This is. Listen, I've been in I should be candid with you. I haven't been in a great mental health place the last couple weeks anyway. But boy, has this been an emotional one. Like, the last two we did were like, we're yelling about stuff, we're cheering about stuff. This one's been heavy, man. Cool. Okay, what's the next one, Kyle?
Next picture.
Are you happy? Want to be more?
Yeah,
Do you want to be happier?
I'm afraid. Okay, how am I gonna be happier?
From 1989, and our first induction of the night, The Little Mermaid.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Fuck. No. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. Yeah.
You're gonna cry about the Little Mermaid?
No, Tom, I'm not crying about The Little Mermaid. I'm crying about the fact, I'm near crying about the fact that we just talked about a couple of entries ago. Word is out. This documentary about openly gay people right on the precipice of the AIDS crisis. And now I'm thinking about the only film that Howard Ashman lived to see completed. Like, my partner and I recently rewatched Little Mermaid because we were going through all the Disney films, and every time Part of Your World plays, I cry because I think about that man writing that song and having to fight for it to get in, and just bitterly fight Katzenberg and the crew, and he got it in. He's the only one he got to see completed. That's right. I did pick Little Mermaid for the registry on our Snow White episode. And I mean, it's an incredible film. It kickstarts the Disney Renaissance. It is some of the most beautiful animation. I mean, one of those things where we have so many things, since that have been set underwater, whether it's Avatar or Black Panther 2 or the new Little Mermaid. And there is something about the way that movie animates its underwater sequences that just still feels so beautiful. That's, I think, the most impressive thing about The Little Mermaid is that you can take qualms about its storytelling or have issues with certain things and go, well, Beauty and the Beast does this better, Lion King does this better, and those are all fair. Those are absolutely fair. But there is a simple beauty to The Little Mermaid and the way that it comes together, and especially the fact that there is something about, just from a cinematic standpoint in general. I mean, we're in an interesting time for Disney right now with the leadership shift it's going through, and it's sort of losing its focus in a lot of its studios. There's something so transcendent about the fact that The Little Mermaid comes at a time where the studio is falling apart, didn't know what to do, and it takes a gamble on a really sweet and simple story. I'm so thrilled that it got in. I guess my only thing is what took them so gosh darn long. But yeah, and obviously, again, the work of Howard Ashman, incredible. Just, that makes me very happy. What a great What a great choice. What a great film.
Yeah, Little Mermaid's great, and I don't have much more to add other than I'm glad Disney's going to honor its legacy by making a live-action movie that looks like it was shot in a dirty puddle. See, like, people are mad because of black ladies in it, which is dumb. What they should be mad about is that it looks like absolute diarrhea. And I don't mean, like, quality of the movie, like it may be an entertaining movie.
No, just the underwater.
It looks like they filmed it on, like, actual film prints and then took, like, White Castle dumps all over it.
No, but it is weird that, like, it is this thing of, we're talking about underwater. I mean, Avatar. When we're recording this, Avatar: The Way of Water is about to come out. I am very curious to see how James Cameron does underwater, because, that can be a really tricky thing to do.
Because,
I really wish that the undersea world in Black Panther 2 looked as good as it could have, and it just looked dim.
Well, because it's like,
bad.
it could look like, because Aquaman did it well.
Yeah.
Black Panther did not.
I mean, but it's also the thing of Little Mermaid, and we're going to get off Little Mermaid soon, because I'm sure there's other films to talk about, but if you look at Little Mermaid, the thing I think it does so smart in the way that it does those undersea sequences is that rather than come up with some hard and fast rule about, like, well, what should the undersea look like, there really does seem to be a conscious decision of, like, hey, will it look cool if we get to see the light refraction? Then let's do it. Will it look better if we're just, letting you see everything you need to see? Then let's do it. It's just about what looks best in the moment, and we as the audience fill in the blanks instead of having to figure out this hard and fast visual rule that wouldn't serve it well. But yeah, Little Mermaid, incredible film. Very glad for that. And very glad that we got one in. We are tied with last year. We got one in.
Next picture.
Can I make you happier?
Kyle, I don't love the malevolence here, but yeah, okay.
The malevolence.
Malevolence. I'm more curious to see truly if you're about to bawl, because from 1989 and our second induction of the night, Tongues Untied.
Wow! Okay. Wow, yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I nominated that to the registry during our Nanook of the North episode. That's a Marlon Riggs film. It's Marlon Riggs' probably most famous film. Part documentary, part art film. We talked about it a lot on the end of Nanook of the North, so I won't spend too much time on it here. Go back and find that episode. You can also find the film in the Criterion Collection, probably on the Criterion channel, part of that signifying work of Marlon Riggs' collection. But between I believe you said it was Behind Every Great Man was the UCLA documentary about the black trans woman, and Word Is Out, and now this, like, just the serious concerted effort on the part of the registry to recognize queer history in America is it is seen and heard, and very good to see that they're doing that, especially with such important films. I've talked enough about Tongues Untied at the end of Nanook North, but folks, look it up. It's a remarkable work in so many senses. I'm very happy that's in. Wow.
I'm very happy we got a second movie in this year.
Jesus.
Very cool.
Yeah, we did.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Mike, can I tell you something? We're going to have a third.
Fuck you guys. That I know. That one I know, because that one got spoiled, because that's in every headline.
Yeah.
Ooh, boy, what a weird. Okay, yeah. Is this listeners? Tweet at us. Is this fun for you? I feel like we're on an emotional roller coaster this time that we're not.
See,
normally.
I'm not on an emotional roller coaster, but I am watching Mike have a hysterectomy in real time.
Our final film from 1989.
There's 389 films?
Yes. When Harry Met Sally.
Oh, wow.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Love it. We loves to see it. Rob Reiner supremacy. That's another guy where you just go, how is every movie he did from that run, from Spinal Tap to fucking Misery, or excuse me, A Few Good Men. Is Few Good Men before Misery? I don't know. Few Good Men. That run till A Few Good Men. Every movie in that run should be in the National Film Registry. Because each of those movies is the best of their respective genres.
And also, what makes Harry Met Sally stand out, and of course it needs to be acknowledged, and I'm going to make my partner and I sound like the most New York people in the world, but, we're big Nora Ephron fans. But really, like, that Nora Ephron script and that Rob Reiner direction and that, Meg Ryan, Billy Crystal, the incredible supporting cast, it's just such a... the thing is about a great romantic comedy, and I was thinking about this because my partner and I were watching Something's Got to Give the other night. What makes a great romantic comedy is that you look at it and go, that shouldn't work. And there is so much about When Harry Met Sally that, as great as the script is, and it's a tremendous script, and as great as the direction is tremendous, any one of those pieces is even slightly off, and that whole movie doesn't work, right? Like, Crystal has to be just right. Meg Ryan has to be just right. The lines have to be just right. That famous Katz's Deli scene in another film plays terribly. But it just gets the tone so right. What a great film. Another one that you feel shocked isn't in there already.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That fucking run Reiner had,
Yeah.
every movie is the best in its respective genre. This is like the best rom-com. So like, what the hell, guys? I mean, good on you for getting to it now, but also, what the hell, guys? Glad it's in. Reiner supremacy. Yeehaw. Kyle, next picture.
From 1990, House Party.
The kid in Play House Party?
Fuck yeah.
Good! So good! Oh my...
Wow, Warner Brothers is really going hard with the marketing for the remake.
This is... Kyle... We got two of the films that I nominated to the registry got in this year. And despite that, this is the greatest joy that I have had so far tonight. Kyle, you could have given me 1 million guesses. You could have even said 1990 film about hip-hop culture, still given me 1 million guesses. And I would not have anticipated House Party. That's great. Yes. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Any movie that has John Witherspoon as a neighbor just complaining about the titular house party happening next to him is always okay in my book. Quite possibly one of the funniest men of all time. Yes, this is amazing.
I started laughing simply at Tom using the phrase, the titular house party. The fact that there is no art, because look, House Party was one of the most successful independent films of all time, right? But it kind of always sat in this weird nebulous place, where like mainstream culture hadn't accepted it as a great film. They still treated it like a flash in the pan. Even something like Friday that was maybe in that space before because of the memes, moved more into mainstream. But now it's in the registry. It is inarguable. We are now not only allowed, but we are free to speak academically about the motion picture House Party. And I cannot imagine wanting to do anything more. Wow. House Party. Folks, if you haven't seen it, check it out and just bask in the glory of the early 90s. I mean, the dance sequences alone. My goodness. Wow.
Hell yeah. Let's fucking go. LFG. Let's fucking go, baby. We're on it. We are here. We out here.
I'm so
Kyle,
happy.
next picture.
What's next, Kyle?
Our free space card from 2008, Iron Man.
Already?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so Iron Man, that's the one we all knew about. I'm sure that got spoiled in the headlines a million times.
Yeah.
And good on it. That was... I selected that as a registry pick for Star Wars. Basically arguing, the manner in which it created the contemporary blockbuster the way Star Wars did. I have my little Iron Man sitting right here because of that. I also think that there's a couple things with Iron Man that are significant. One, the fact that it was, produced without a major studio on hand. It was, Marvel Studios' first independently produced film. And the fact that the confidence that Marvel had with that was not in a movie star. It was in intellectual property, right? That, the way the old studio system was like, well, we have our movie stars under contract. Marvel went, well, we have these characters in our wheelhouse, and that's the important thing. There's also something to, I know that people can complain about the first Iron Man, about its story, and they can take problems with little things here and there. But one thing that makes Iron Man interesting to watch now, we talked about it a bit when The Dark Knight got in a year ago, 2 years ago, whenever that was, 2 years ago, how The Dark Knight was like the capper on the George W. Bush era and like a concise commentary on the George W. Bush era. Iron Man always felt so tied to the Obama era. I mean, Obama referenced Iron Man in one of his first press briefings, right? It always felt so tied to it because there was something that did, as much as people like to pretend that these superhero movies mean nothing, there was something that at the time felt so transcendent about a movie that stars basically a warmonger in the middle of the Middle East who decides to change his ways and destroy these weapons and become a force for change, which is what so many of us were feeling in 2008, optimistically. So very cool that Iron Man is in. I mean, you kind of had to it's had the longevity already that you had to recognize it, so I'm very glad that they did.
Yeah, glad it's in. It's what else more? What more can we say? It's a very important movie, so I'm glad it's in. Fuck all you Marvel complaining babies. Next picture, the final one of the night.
Indeed, the final one of the night, and I believe the youngest inductee now. From 2011, Pariah.
Oh, the Dee Reese movie. Okay. Yeah, for folks, you might know Dee Reese from Mudbound, which got her some Oscar recognition. Yeah, Pariah is again more queer representation in the registry. A black gay woman is a central protagonist. Yeah, a really impressive independent film. First came to my attention when it appeared on Slate's Black Film Canon, and certainly a real calling card for Dee Reese in a really impressive way. Dee Reese, who I think is also the second ever black woman nominated for screenwriting, I think. So, incredible achievement. Yeah, very cool to see that. I'm impressed with that one. That's an interesting pick. Yeah, Pariah. Easily found, easily streamable. Folks should check it out.
Yeah, cool entrant. Interesting that you decided to go with Mudbound for the Dee Reese credit and not The Last Thing He Wanted, the movie that set the world on fire. Everyone's still talking about it.
I couldn't remember the title.
They're about
of that movie.
There have been internal discussions about renaming Best Picture to Best Movie that isn't the Last Thing He Wanted. So interesting that you went with Mudbound. Interesting. I'm gonna remember that. Dee Reese is gonna remember that. All right.
That is our reactions to the latest crop of National Film Registry films. If you were keeping track, fellas, how many of those have you seen?
5 confidently.
Okay.
9.
Yeah, I'm at about 11 by my count. So
no Best Picture winners,
definitely
obviously.
Yeah, that's the thing. Not just no Best Picture, there's no Best Picture nominees. So this was for folks listening. I was talking about how I was keeping track of the registry and how many times they induct Best Picture nominees or Best Picture winners. Literally every year since the registry started, there has been at least one film in the class of inductees that is either a Best Picture winner or a Best Picture nominee. It seems like this year is the first year that's not the case in the entire history of the registry. It seems like the selections were very pointed to be more representative, I think, in a very good way. I think that when you look at this class, there weren't a lot of films. I mean, yes, we heard Iron Man and went, oh, yeah, of course. And when Harry Met Sally, oh, yeah, of course. But there weren't nearly as many this year films where we just kind of went, oh, of course. Even the ones that we like and that we have seen, it's exciting to see House Party get recognized that way, that kind of thing. I think it's super interesting this year, the crop of films they selected in terms of what it represents and what they chose to say with those selections. I think that's super interesting. Also, very cool that last year, 1 film from our registry submissions got in. This year, 3. I think that's very cool. 3 films got in of the films that we selected for the registry. None of them, unfortunately, Tom, were Here Come the Co-eds. But, always next year. Your
12 documentaries this year.
Wow! Jesus Christ. I guess that is a lot. Yeah. Wow.
That's almost half the entrants are documentaries.
All right. So, out of that, I will ask y'all one last question before we wrap up, which is, we acknowledge most of us have not seen most of these films, but fellas, of all the films that we talked about that were inducted this year that you have not seen, which one are you most interested in checking out after this conversation?
Ballad of Gregorio Cortez. That one I actually might not wait 30 years to watch. I might actually wait like 3 weeks, but that is one I have it, so I can easily crack it open and watch it. But it also does sound like the most me thing that they could have inducted this year. So I'm definitely into that. Kyle? Boy.
Betty tells a story. I feel like that'd be like an interesting, just from like a character study perspective. But it's like an actual...
Betty tells a story, you said?
Yeah. Just being able to sort of,
too.
Just being able to kind of see that retold and whatnot. Yeah. I mean, I had no idea what it was going into it, but after that paragraph, I'm like, oh, yeah, all right. I'd be interested in checking that out.
It's all right. Yeah. I guess I'll just go fuck myself.
Gregorio Cortez was second on my list, Tom. So, we weren't far off.
Oh, well, okay. So I'll only just fuck myself slightly less hard because it came in second for Kyle. Jerk off.
Should I bump that down to third and take a House Party number 2 then?
Wait, Kyle, have you never seen House Party?
Never seen it, but now
Kyle, make that number 1. Make that number 1 tonight. Make that number 1 whenever this episode is done. Make that number 1.
All right.
Folks, thank you so much for checking out our registry picks. Most likely, you will hear from us again in another special episode when we talk about the Academy Awards. Should be interesting this year with some of the things going on. We'll probably drop an Academy Awards bonus episode, and we are already in the process of booking guests and arranging Season 3. We are looking for Season 3 to come out in early 2023. We hope you'll join us. A lot of interesting films that we will be talking about. So, folks, thank you so much for checking out. You're missing out. We will see you again in 2023.
See you, gang.